Hello class, welcome back. Today we're going to continue talking about volume. This is our 6th lesson in Unit 10. Let's begin by reviewing your homework. Now please make sure that you are writing down the formula, plugging in your numbers, and then writing your answer. Now the formula that I used is volume equals base times height, but you can also use volume equals length times width times height. Either way is correct. Please pause the video while you check over your answers. When you're ready to move on, press play. Now for the second page, you had to calculate the surface area and also the volume. So for the first problem, the surface area is 418 square meters and the volume is 520 cubic meters. For the second problem, the surface area is 1,160 square feet, and for the volume, it's 2,400 cubic feet. For problem number 3, the surface area is 157 square millimeters, and the volume is 130 cubic millimeters. For the fourth problem, the surface area is 430.5 square inches, and the volume is 493 cubic inches. Before we begin, please have out your math notebook and a pencil. In your math notebook, I would like for you to solve the following problem. Rylan wants to fill her plastic container with 1-inch cubes. If her container measures 11.5 inches by 8 inches by 2 inches, how many little cubes can she fit inside? Please pause the video while you answer this question. When you're ready to move on, press play. If you said that the volume is 11.5 times 8 times 2 equals 184 cubic inches, you are correct. Now let's take it a step further. Rylan wants to fill the same plastic container with half-inch cubes. If her container measures 11.5 inches by 8 inches by 2 inches, how many half-inch cubes can she fit inside? Go ahead and talk this over with your groups and solve the problem. When you're ready to check your answer, press play. Now there are two ways in which we can solve this problem. The first way that we're going to talk about is taking each side, so 11.5, and seeing how many halves are in 11.5. There are 23 halves in 11.5. How many halves are in 8? There are 16 halves in 8. And how many halves are in 2? There are 4 halves in 2. So now you can take the new measurements and multiply them together. So you can take 23 times 16 times 4, and it will give you a total of 1,472 cubes. So you can fit 1,472 cubes into this container. The second method that I would like for us to talk about is where you take the volume of the larger container, you take the volume of the smaller container, and then you divide. So the volume of the larger one is 184 cubic inches. The volume of the smaller one, 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, is equal to 0.125 cubic inches. And so you take 184 divided by 0.125, and you get 1,472 cubes. So those are the two methods in which you can use to solve this problem. Now at this time, please take out Selling a Home Run worksheet that's in your packet. Problem number 1 reads, Carnell runs a business where he sells baseball equipment to different teams. The baseballs come individually wrapped in boxes with the dimensions 1/3 foot long, 1/3 foot wide, and 1/3 foot high. A customer has just arrived at his store with a box measuring 4 2/3 feet long, 3 1/3 feet wide, and 2 feet high. How many baseballs can Carnell fit into the box to sell to the customer? So the first part, how many baseballs can Cornell fit into the box provided by the customer? Now remember that the baseballs are 1/3 feet by 1/3 feet by 1/3 feet. So let's take a look at each of our side lengths. We have 4 2/3. So how many 1/3 are in 4 2/3? You go 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14, so you get 14/3. The next one, 3 1/3 is equal to 3 times 3 is 9, 9 plus 1 is 10, and then 2 times 3 is 6. So now our new lengths are 14, 10, and 6. So now if you multiply 14 times 10 times 6, you're going to get 840. So your answer is 840 1/3 cubes that can go into your box. So the answer is 840 baseballs. Now the second part of the question reads, what is the volume of the larger box? There are two ways in which you can find this. The first way that you can find the volume of the larger box is by multiplying the three dimensions, 4 2/3 feet times 3 1/3 feet times 2 feet. So copy this down on your paper. You can plug it into your calculator, and you will find that when you multiply the length times the width times the height, you will come up with 31 1/9 feet cubed. The other way in which you can find this is by going back to what the dimensions that we converted it to in the first problem. So 4 2/3 is equal to 14/3 times 3 1/3 is equal to 10/3 times 2, which is equal to 6/3. If you multiply them straight across, 14 times 10 times 6, your answer is 840. 3 times 3 times 3 is equal to 27. And remember, this line right here means to divide. So 840 divided by 27, or another way that you can do this is just by simplifying, same thing. Your answer is 31 1/9 feet cubed. So here are the two different ways in which you can find the volume of the larger prism. Problem number 2 reads, a right rectangular prism has edges of 3 1/4 inches, 4 inches, and 1 3/4 inches. How many cubes with lengths of 1/4 inch would be needed to fill the prism? What is the volume? So the first part is, how many cubes would fit into the prism? And so first we need to ask ourselves, how many 1/4 can go into each of these? So 3 1/4, there are 13 fourths that are in 3 1/4. How many fourths go into 4? And that's 16 fourths go into 4. And then how many fourths are in 1 3/4? There are 7 fourths in 1 3/4. So now how many cubes can go into this prism? You multiply 13 times 16 times 7, and your answer is 1,456 1/4 cubes can fit into the larger prism. And now the question asks, what is the volume of the prism? And can you find it in two ways? So the first way that you can find the volume of the larger prism is by multiplying the length times the width times the height. And so your answer is 22 3/4 cubic inches. Now the other way in which you can find this is by going back to how we use the dimensions in the first problem, we had 13/4. 3 1/4 is equal to 13/4 times 4 times 1/4 is equal to 16/4, and then 1 3/4 converted into fourths is equal to 7/4. And so if you multiply them straight across, 13 times 16 times 7, your answer is 1,456, and then 4 times 4 times 4 is equal to 64. And now just divide 1,456 divided by 64. Your answer is 22 3/4 inches cubed. Now for classwork, I would like for you to answer the 4 problems. You can work together in your group to answer the 4 problems. When your group has finished all 4 problems, please have your teacher check it. Now at this time, I would like for you to take out the surface area or volume 7 word problems. You're going to complete this by first reading the problem and identifying if it's a surface area or volume word problem. Check the correct box. And then I would like for you to answer the question. Make sure you're showing your work. Please pause the video while you complete these 7 problems. When you're ready to check your answers, press play. For problem number 1, this is talking about you're having to calculate the volume. So first you have to find the volume, and then you have to multiply it by 1.5, and so your answer is 720 pounds. For problem number 2, this is the surface area word problem. You have to find the surface area of the 5 sides, which is 90, and then you have to multiply it by $6, and so your final answer is $540. For problem 3, this is a volume word problem. Now the first thing you should notice here is you're talking about meters and centimeters. So you're going to have to convert all of the meters into centimeters. You find the volume of the first one, you find the volume of the second one, then you divide, and so your answer is 12.5 boxes. For question number 4, this is talking about surface area. As you can see, again, this one, you're dealing with 2 different units, and so you're going to have to convert all of the meters into centimeters and then calculate the surface area. And so the surface area is, well, how many tiles will you need? You will need 39 tiles. For problem number 5, this is talking about surface area. And so your surface area for this is 367 square inches. For problem 6, this is a surface area word problem. We're talking about 5 sides that are going to be stained because the top part is going to be where the plant is coming out. And so the surface area that you will need to paint is 848 square inches. And for problem number 7, this is talking about volume. You find the volume of the first box, you find the volume of the second box, and then you divide, and so your answer should be 25 trailers. For homework for tonight, you need to complete the geometry handout homework page. There are 3 sections in which you have to complete. Good luck, and I hope you have a great afternoon.